من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. فإذا قرأت القرآن فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praise is due to Allah, whom we praise and seek His help and guidance, and whom we ask for forgiveness. And we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evils of our souls, and we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evils of our actions. And I bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah the Almighty. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his slave and messenger, the last of the prophets sent to mankind. May the peace and blessings be upon him. O you who believe, fear Allah as he should be feared, and die only in a state of Islam, die only as Muslims. My dear brothers and sisters, today's sermon is going to revolve around an important topic that everyone vies for and seeks, and that is how to attain real happiness. How to attain real happiness. There are approximately 7 billion people on the face of this earth seeking happiness. Seeking happiness. The poor person thinks that happiness may be gained by becoming rich. The unmarried person may think that happiness may be gained by getting married. The sick person may think that happiness may be gained by becoming healthy. The depressed person may think that happiness may be gained by taking alcohol or drugs or gambling or following his lusts and desires. The unknown person may think that happiness is gained by becoming known, famous and popular. And the list goes on. Yet, only one of these people, or one of these types of people, will gain happiness, as Allah the Almighty has stated in His book. Only one type of people, or one type of person, will gain this happiness that all people are vying for and seeking. And that is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. Whosoever does righteousness, whether male or female, whether male or female, and is a believer, we will grant him, we will give him a pleasurable life, a comfortable life, a peaceful life, a life of comfort. We'll make him prosperous in this life, and we will give him his recompense on the day of judgment for the good deeds that he used to perform. وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ on the Day of Judgment. This type of person, my dear brothers, has two characteristics in him. In short, they are doing righteous deeds, first and foremost. And righteous deeds are those which are done in accordance to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Away from all innovations. When Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahimahullah, was asked, what are good deeds? What are righteous deeds? He said, that which is done correctly and that which is done sincerely. They said, what is that which is done correctly and that which is done sincerely? He said, that which is done correctly is that which is in accordance to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Meaning, you keep away from all innovations. And that which is done sincerely is that which is done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that you keep away from all shirk, from all polytheism. من عمل صالحا وهو مؤمن, and he is a believer. That is the second important characteristic of a person who earns a pleasurable life. He has to have the correct and sound belief system. He has to have the correct and sound belief in Allah, in His prophets, in His angels, in the decree, the predestination, in the Day of Judgment. My dear brothers and sisters, the pious predecessors understood how to gain a pleasurable life to perfection, to the extent where they actually lived, believe it or not, they actually lived paradise on this earth. And you could easily understand and comprehend that from their words. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah used to say, there is a paradise in this world. He who does not enter it will not enter the paradise of the hereafter. Subhanallah. There is a paradise in this world. He who does not enter it will not enter the paradise of the hereafter. Another one of the pious predecessors used to say, Masakin ahlud dunya kharaju minha wa ma dhaqu atyaba ma fiha. How poor are the people of this world. They leave it and they have not tasted the best that is in it. Whilst another would say, لو يعلم الملوك وأبناء الملوك ما نحن فيه من السعادة لجالدون عليه بالسيوف. If the kings and the king's children knew of the happiness, the state of happiness that we are in, they would try and forcibly take it away from us by their swords. And whilst another would say, sometimes in my life I go through stages of happiness, of comfort, of tranquility. I say to myself that if the people of paradise are going through this state, then they must be having a good life. They must be in a good state. Subhanallah. They lived paradise on this earth. What did they mean by these words, my dear brothers? How did they live paradise on this world? If you were to really look deeply into the teachings of your dear Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you would find this paradise. You would actually find this paradise on earth. Let's quickly run through some of the small hadiths or some hadiths that relate or are related to this topic. And in brief, in summary, the pious predecessors, my dear brothers, when they were speaking about paradise on earth, they meant a couple of things. Most importantly, the spirituality that they were living in this world. The feeding of the soul, which is the second component of the body that needs to be fed. We all know that this body of ours is made up of two components. This physical body and another body which is unseen to us, the soul. And we know how to feed this physical body and look after it. Give it food and drink, entertain it through halal ways, exercise it, looking after it. We all know how to look after our bodies, this physical body of ours. As for the soul, it needs to be fed also. And if you don't feed it, it dies. And it is your connection. It is the connection between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you want to live a happy, a pleasurable life, a prosperous life, you need to look after that soul of yours. Or else it will die. It will go in a state of depression. It will be void and empty of that spiritual growth that we all vie for. For the Salaf, the pious predecessors, through these words of theirs, this is what they were referring to. And you feed your soul through the prayer, through the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the dua, through reading the Quran and understanding it and implementing it. And the same with the sunnah of our dear Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Through seeking knowledge. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, referring to the prayer, وَجُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِ فِي الصَّلَاةِ. Subhanallah. When you perfect and perform your prayer as it should be, perfected and performed, you feel the sweetness of that prayer. When you are God conscious in your prayer, you feel what the Prophet ﷺ felt, as is in this hadith, or as this hadith shows. وَجُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِ فِي الصَّلَاةِ. The prayer has been made the delight of my eyes. And whenever our hardship used to descend or befall the Prophet ﷺ, he used to say, he used to turn to what? He used to turn to the prayer. أَرِحْنَا بِهَا يَا بِلَالِ. Let us seek comfort through it, O Bilal. Perform the adhan, O Bilal. Let us seek comfort in the prayer. But look at the comfort, the peace, the delight of the heart and the mind is in the prayer. And we all know how important the prayer is, my dear brothers and sisters. It is the most important pillar after the Shahada. It is the first thing that you will be asked for on the Day of Judgment. If you pass in your prayer, your whole judgment will be made easy for you. And if you fail, you will fail in the rest of your judgment. But are you observing your prayer and perfecting it? Everyone should ask themselves. And the Salaf knew the importance of this prayer to the extent where they said, and listen carefully to these words, and I want every one of you to implement this or these words in their lives. They set it towards two things: the prayer and the Quran. Same wording. من أراد أن يعرف قدر نفسه عند الله فلينظر إلى قدر الصلاة عنده. And the same thing with the Quran. من أراد أن يعرف قدر نفسه عند الله فلينظر إلى قدر القرآن عنده. Whoever wants to know his status, where he stands in the sight of Allah, in front of Allah, then let him look at where the prayer stands concerning him. If he loves the prayer and is observing the prayer and perfecting the prayer and being God conscious in the prayer, looking forward at all times to pray, finding that peace and comfort in the prayer, the khushu' that is asked of you, then you know that you are in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are held in a very high status. And the opposite. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. If you are not upholding the prayer, not being God conscious in your prayer, not perfecting the prayer, praying on and off, as many unfortunately do, or not praying at all, what life, my dear brother, are you going to lead? وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. What life are you going to lead? You have no connection, no relationship with your Lord. SubhanAllah, when one of the Salaf was asked, what is the best thing in this life? What is the best thing in this life? He said, مَحَبَّةُ اللَّهِ وَالشَّوْقُ إِلَيْهِ وَالْإِعْرَاضُ عَمَّا سِوَاهُ وَالْإِقْبَالُ عَلَيْهِ وَالْإِعْرَاضُ عَمَّا سِوَاهُ. When asked, what is the best thing in this life? He said, the love of Allah, the Almighty. The love of Allah, the Almighty. Looking forward to meeting Him. Devoting myself to Him. And keeping away from anything that turns me away from Him, the Almighty. And there is nothing better than the prayer concerning, if you want to implement those words, there is nothing better than the prayer. How beautiful it is when you put everything aside, your work, your family, whatever occupies you and busies you in this world, aside for the one and only, your Lord, your Creator. For the prayer, my dear brothers, hold on to it firmly and strongly. The Quran, my dear brothers, the last constitution sent to mankind, which is a guidance, which is an enlightenment, which is a cure of the hearts. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ. We send down from the Quran that which is a cure and a mercy to the believers. And wallahi, it is a cure. You need to live with the Quran, my dear brothers, on a daily basis. You need to have a schedule with the Quran on a daily basis if you want to be upheld in a high status in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm not talking here now about the virtues of the prayer and the merits and the virtues of the Quran and its merits. That needs, khutbah after khutbah after khutbah. I'm just giving you guidelines, outlines of how you should lead your life if you want to gain that real happiness. You must have a schedule with the Quran on a daily basis. Read it, memorize it, and implement it in your daily lives. There is no better laws, creed, morals and etiquettes than what is in that great book. And we all know that the Prophet ﷺ, when Aisha was asked on how was the character of the Prophet ﷺ, she said, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. Your dear Prophet ﷺ used to implement the teachings of the Quran to every point, to every precise issue and matter. He was a walking Quran. That's how he was described. May the peace and blessings be upon him. And we claim to love the Prophet ﷺ. Are we reading this Quran? Are we, ask yourselves, a walking Quran? Or are we far away from the Quran? Are we that person that the Quran curses, or will curse, or will bear witness against on the Day of Judgment? Ask yourselves this very, very important question. And that is why I repeat and remind you, these two very, very important things that the Salaf specified immensely. That if you want to know where your status is with Allah, then look at these two things, the Salah and the Quran. If you are upholding them, living them, then bi'idhnillah, you're on a good path. You're on a righteous path. The dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is also very, very important and one of the easiest forms of worship, ibadahs. Because you can do it while driving, while working, while sitting down, while lying down, while, subhanallah, the easiest of worships. And if there's ever a verse in the Quran that exemplifies paradise on earth, then it is this verse. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُمْ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who believe. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُمْ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, and they find comfort and peace in the remembrance of Allah. Surely it is through the remembrance of Allah that the hearts find peace and comfort. Contrary to that, if there's ever a verse in the Quran that exemplifies hellfire in this earth, on this world, it's the following verse, as some of the Salaf used to say. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. And whoever keeps away from my remembrance, we will give him a life of hardship, a life of uneasiness, and we will resurrect him on the Day of Judgment, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, blind. نسأل الله السلامة والعافية. May Allah the Almighty make us one of those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all times. And may He make us, may He make our tongues wet of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all times. And may He make us one of those who find peace and comfort through His remembrance. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. In the name of Allah, and all praise is due to Allah, and may the peace and blessings be upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My dear brothers and sisters, on that important issue of dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our dear Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in the authentic hadith, الذي يذكر الله والذي لا يذكر الله كمثل الحي والميت. Subhanallah, look at the difference between these two people that the Prophet ﷺ gave an example of. Those who remember Allah and those who don't remember Allah are the examples, or are similar to someone who is alive and someone who is dead. Alive and dead. Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, when commenting on certain verses related to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says these beautiful words. The remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the believer is like the water for the fish and the water for the crop. Without it, it will not survive or cannot survive. There will be emptiness, a sense of emptiness inside you. And that is what, unfortunately, the lives of the non-Muslims are, full of emptiness. Why? Because they haven't got that iman. They haven't got that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters, also what is important is to seek knowledge and enlighten yourself so that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with proof, with conviction, and you know how to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly. For seeking knowledge is also one of those important aspects where a person can gain or attain real happiness and a pleasurable life. And your dear Prophet ﷺ informed about this by saying, إِذَا مَرَرْتُمْ بِرِيَاضِ الْجَنَّةِ فَارْتَعُوا قِيلَ وَمَا رِيَاضُ الْجَنَّةِ قَالَ حِلَقُ الْعِلْمِ. If you go past the gardens of paradise, then graze in it. Feed from it. They said, and what are the gardens of paradise, O Prophet of Allah? He said, the circles of knowledge. Circles of knowledge. And we all know the authentic hadith. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us one of them today. Any people that gather in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and recite His book and study it, what will happen to them? تنزل عليهم الرحمة تنزل عليهم السكينة. Tranquility will befall them. وغشيتهم الرحمة, and mercy will encompass them. وحفتهم الملائكة, and the angels will surround them. وذكرهم الله في من عنده, and Allah will mention them to His close angels. What better virtue and merit do you want than that? For seeking knowledge also enlightens you, enhances that spiritual growth that we are all seeking. Therefore, at least have a schedule also to attend lessons, even if it's once a week. That's the least that you can do to enlighten yourselves with this beautiful Sharia that we have, the best and most perfect Sharia sent to mankind. And the list goes on and on. I don't want to prolong the khutbah too long, but I just want to shed light on two very important other aspects before the prayer. And that is, know, my dear brothers and sisters, a question may arise and say, okay, what are the pillars of a true, real, happy life? And in short, these pillars have been shown to us by the Prophet ﷺ in two authentic hadiths. In two authentic hadiths. And they are very, very important because they put a balance in your life. It's very important, my dear brothers and sisters, to balance your lives. It's very, very important to balance your lives. And this is what these two hadiths show or point to. But it's not all worship, 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 day and night. We're not asking you that. And the Prophet ﷺ never done that, nor did his companions. They worked, they spent time with their families, with their guests, etc., etc. What the important point here for you to learn is that you need to balance your lives between this materialistic world and the spiritual world. And that is exactly what the Prophet ﷺ pointed out in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As and in the hadith of Salman radiallahu anhuma, by saying, listen very carefully, he says, إِنَّ لِرَبِّكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ وَلِجَسَدِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ, and in another narration, وَلِنَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ وَلِزَوْجِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ وَلِضَيْفِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ وَلِجَارِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ فَأَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ. فَأَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ. Your Lord has rights over you. And your body and your soul has rights over you. And your wife has rights over you. And your guest has rights over you. And your neighbor has rights over you. Therefore, give everyone their rights. What we derive from this hadith, or the two hadiths, which are narrated by two different sahabas, is that happiness, true happiness, the pillars of true happiness revolves around three things. One, your relationship with your Lord. When it comes to His rights, you need to give Him His rights. Secondly, your relationship within yourself. The physical body, as we mentioned earlier, and the spiritual body, the soul. As you feed this physical body, you need to feed the soul, your spiritual body. And the third pillar that happiness is based on, or is built on, is giving the rights of others. When it's time to give your wife's right, you give her her rights. When a guest visits you, you give him his rights. Your neighbor, you give him his rights. And like that. And like that. One last important thing on this important topic, my dear brothers and sisters. When reading on this topic, when I was reading or researching this topic, believe it or not, I came across two amazing stories of non-Muslims. One by the name of Dale Carnegie, who wrote books on this topic from a Western perspective. Stop Worrying and Start Living. A very famous book. Over 10 million copies of that book got sold around the world. Yet, it was rumored that this person, believe it or not, committed suicide. SubhanAllah. He's writing for people on how to gain happiness, and yet he couldn't find happiness. And he committed suicide. Why? Very simple. He was lacking that first and most important of pillars. He had no relationships with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No relationship with his Lord. No connection to his Lord. For fame and popularity did not buy him happiness. Another, a woman, Christina Onassis, one of the richest women that lived on this earth. She inherited from her billionaire father $5 billion in the 1960s. Probably be about 60, 70 billion or even more today. Yet she did not find happiness and she committed suicide. For money does not buy you happiness. This materialistic world, my dear brothers and sisters, is temporary. We are looking for permanent happiness, not temporary happiness. If your inside is empty and void of iman, of that relationship, that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will never be able to buy it. You will never be able to gain it through money or fame or marriage. This Christina Onassis married 4 people from different continents, and she divorced each one. A reporter caught up with her and said to her, why did you do this? You married a communist, you married a capitalist, you married a poor person, a rich person. What were you looking for? She said, I was looking for happiness. And I did not find it. Or I haven't found it. For money, fame, popularity, alcohol, drugs, depression, gambling. People go into these different fields because they haven't found happiness. They're looking for that happiness. And they will never find it because it will not give them happiness. A lot of people, unfortunately, in the West are in suicidal mode. They're in depression. If you read about the percentage of people in depression, you would be amazed. In some countries, some past the 50%, 60%, 70%. وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ. Why? Because there's emptiness in their lives. There is emptiness in their lives. And they will never, ever gain that happiness until they connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with their Lord. May Allah the Almighty make us firm on this religion. May He forgive us our sins, past and present, the minor and the major, the first and the last. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the highest levels of paradise. And we ask Him to forgive our sins. We ask Him what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Him of the goodness of this world. And we seek refuge in Him from what His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sought refuge in the evils and the bad of this world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us and from you. Wa aqim as-salat wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.